All right, so we're going to welcome onto the show Lauren Campbell. Lauren is a writer for CLNS and Couch Guy Sports, and she's also the co-host of the Loose Change podcast. Welcome onto the show, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit of Bruins. But before we get into the Bruins, you wrote an interesting article about being a female hockey fan and kind of the challenges of that. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been a hockey fan for pretty much my whole life, and I've noticed it more and more over the years if I go out with my girlfriends or if I'm at a game. Um, just like some snarky comments here and there. I like to wear my Milan Lucic jersey. Obviously, he's not on the team anymore, and he was the enforcer of this team. He played a big role and he was here for a long time, and the jersey was a gift, so I'm not gonna not wear it ever. And just things like, snarky comments, like I said, oh, you only like Lucic because he's cute, or can you name any other players besides him? Like, of course you'd have Lucic's jersey, or I'm just like, what does that even mean? Like, I'm here to enjoy a hockey game. I'm here to enjoy the experience that comes with a hockey game. And like I said, it's become more prominent like the last year or two, really. And, I like, I, I don't dress any different than any other person there. I'm in Bruins swag. I have my hoodie, I have a jersey, or I have a shirt, anything that's just with the Bruins. And it's just like I look around and I'll see a lot of, both males and females on their phones for most of the game. There's guys I see who aren't even interested in being there, where I'm just like, no one's going to stop and question them. They never will. And it's just frustrating because, yes, there are women and male fans who have no interest in being at the game when they're there, but it's like, don't ruin it for the rest of us. And it was just like, it's just so frustrating because, as someone who's been involved in sports her entire life, I know what I'm talking about. I know the game. I pay very close attention to every Bruins game, every Red Sox game. And it's just like, I don't want to be referred to as a puck bunny or a pink hat because that's not who I am. That's not how a lot of female fans are. So just kind of putting it into like a female perspective, I thought it was important to get out there where it's like, sure, like if you want to question us, do it like in a fun, joking manner if you can. Like I have no problem talking about hockey. I'll talk hockey all day long, but don't question my loyalty to the game just because of a jersey I'm wearing.
Right. Well, I think it's funny because I think there's, the problem is that you see the stereotype, right? Where it's like, women don't know what they're talking about, which my sister, now I grew up with season tickets to the Patriots. My sister knows a lot about football and knows what's going on. My mom, not so much, but she understands what's going on, but she's always like, what's that? What's going on here? So she's like, she gets it. She understands. She knows all the players, but like, she has a hard time, I think, focusing during the game sometimes. But like I just feel like there's a lot of times, women get dragged to stuff sometimes by their boyfriend, right? And it's like they're there, they don't know what they're doing. But there's a ton of men, like you said, that are in the same boat where it's like they don't know what's going on. They don't know all the players. They couldn't name 10 players on the team either. And it's like, but because they're a guy, no one questions them because like, well, guys are supposed to know things about sports, and so we just assume that they do, whether and you won't question them about it or anything like that. And it's just like you get a bad rap sometimes where you're like, just cut the women some slack. There are women that know what they're talking about, just like there are men that know what they're talking about, and there are women that don't, and there are men that don't. It's just like either you're a fan or you're not. It's, I don't know, it's one of those things. And I just think too, like, if you look at, especially in Boston, one of the best writers in Boston is Jackie McMullen. Like, she's been around forever, right? And it's like she's a woman that knows exactly what she's talking about and is, keyed into everything. And it's like, how do we not accept women in the sports role when, we've had someone for so long in that position where it's just like, come on.
Yeah, I mean it's wild. Like you said, Jackie McMullen is just she's so good at what she does. And I in the hockey world, we have Catherine Tappan, who's just phenomenal. And she started it with Nesson with the Bruins. And you know, more people like them are so needed in the sports world for women fans, for women in general in the sports media world. And the more they become prominent and the more they become, you know, more heard, I guess you could say, it's gonna do wonders for, females who want to be in the sports world. They just want to be fans of the game. Like, I promise we know what we're talking about.
It's like I say, it's an interesting situation. I do think too sometimes like part of the issue is that or people will just say, "Oh, the sideline reporter is a girl and she's pretty, so she must be just a pretty face and has no idea what she's talking about." When like, I mean, Catherine Tappan started that way, right? And like, she knows like. There's so many women that start like that that know what they're talking about, that know what they're doing, that have been sports fans their whole life, and it's like just because they're pretty, people think they got there because they're pretty and no other reason. It's like, come on, like it's just silly. So, anyways, that's enough with the feminism. Let's move on to Bruins stuff. But
Perfect.
so the Bruins obviously right now they're a point away from clinching a playoff spot. They're 5 points out of first place with 2 games in hand. They're winning tonight. Who knows what's going to happen? By the time this airs, or by the time people hear this, the game's already obviously going to be over. But they've maintained success with so many guys being injured. Why do you think that is? Like, have they done that?
Bruce Cassidy. I mean, I'll tell you, they would not be able to do this without Claude Julien, and that's no disrespect for him, like at all. He was a fantastic coach. He was here for 10 years. He did a lot of good. But Bruce Cassidy lets these players play under his system, but on their terms. Patrice Bergeron's having a good career year because he's able to be a two-way defenseman. He can focus more on scoring. I said defenseman, I meant, off
I
center.
got you.
But
I got you. Yeah.
um he can focus on being that scorer. He doesn't have to focus on two separate things. He can focus on being the player he's supposed to be. And then, he brings in players, I know this is Don Sweeney, but Rick Nash, Brian Giunta of all people, I never thought I'd be saying has been really good for this team when he was on the ice. And
Mm.
it's, we lose Charlie McAvoy, we lose Dano Chara, we lose these big name players, and it's next man up. And they have no problem like switching from this line to that line or playing with this person as opposed to that person. And then Ryan Donato comes out of nowhere and he's like, I'm just gonna act like I've played for 5 years in the NHL. So this this team has a really good identity and really good chemistry, and we haven't seen that in a few years. And we saw it at the end of last year when Cassidy came in after Julian was fired, and now it's just he has control of this team, and he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. He's been with some of these guys for years, so to bring him in and to let him coach his way, but let the players play their way is something we haven't been able to see. And this is supposed to be a rebuilding year for the Bruins. Whoever guessed that they'd be a point away with 10 games left in the season, clinching a playoff spot, hopefully, and being in second place
Crazy.
in the league. In the
I
league.
Yeah, I mean, and they put up a stat. I think it was like 8 guys scored their first NHL goal this year for the Bruins. It's just ridiculous. And so I think you're totally right about the Cassidy stuff. I remember Julian when he would have either whether it be Sagan or whether it was Spooner when he was playing. It's like he would get a little too much in the offensive zone and he'd forget about the defense, and the next day he'd be on the ninth floor. And it's like, guy, like you got to play him. Like he's got to get through some of that stuff, and he's not going to be perfect. It is what it is. Like there's nothing you can do about that. And like so you let the guys play and you let them kind of feel their way through the game. And it's interesting you mentioned Donato, and I'm going to ask you a question about Donato in a few minutes. But watching the game tonight, he obviously scored a goal, a power play goal in the first period. But he had a few plays where like he probably should have scored, or he should have had something. He should have had gotten a good shot on net, or made a good play, and he lost the puck or he turned the puck over. It's like it's a second game in the NHL, first of all, but you just got to let him play. Like Claude, I feel like was so had his, as Felgram, as you say, his fribble crew, where it's like, throw the fourth line on the ice. The old veterans, like, they won't make mistakes. They may not score, but they won't make mistakes in the defensive end. So it's like, well, what the hell good is that? You got to score some goals too. And, trust your goalie. You're paying him $7 million a year. Trust your goalie to make some saves. And, every now and again, let your guys take off and play offense. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, it's like you said, it's Donato's second game, and he's gonna make mistakes. He's gonna adjust. We've seen Charlie McAvoy kind of lose his cool And that's, it's the young players really figuring out what to do, what not to do, where to be on the ice. And I go back to Brandon Carlo because I know he's still on the ice. He's been kind of sloppy, but Cassidy's letting him play, whether that's because there's so many injuries or what. But if he was under Julian's system still, like you said, he'd be right on that ninth floor. He would have been on the ninth floor 4 games ago. But, and I think people forget that Carlo is really young too. He's just been on the team for 2 years longer than all the other rookies. So
Right.
people tend to forget that. And he's going to make his mistakes too. It's really annoying to see him fall in a lot of these games, but it's part of just kind of playing through and figuring out, like I said, figuring out those mistakes and not losing confidence in yourself. And I think under Claude's system, a lot of young players started to, but Cassidy kind of sees past that, and these guys play to their potential.
Right. Oh, it makes sense. It makes sense. So I think you're right about that. I agree with you there. So do you we mentioned all the players being hurt. Are they going to be healthy? Do you think they're going to be healthy when they get to the playoffs? Because the playoffs are going to be in a few weeks now. They got, after tonight, 10 games left. And so, we don't have very long until the playoffs start. Are some of those guys going to be back? Are all those guys going to be back? What have you heard?
I think a majority of them are going to be back. I think Bergeron will be back. I think there's no way he doesn't play in the playoffs. He's played through punctured lungs,
Yeah.
separated shoulders. So, and I think if he didn't go for x-rays on that foot, I think he'd still be playing. I think
Right.
he was playing through that longer than we realize. McAvoy, I think he'll be he'll be good for the playoffs. He gets reevaluated on the 31st of this month, I believe. And it's an MCL sprain, so those are really tricky, and you don't want that MCL to tear. So
Right. Yeah.
I think he'll be back. He's young, he's healthy. Chara, I think he's fine. I think he'll be shut down until the playoffs, which I'm perfectly okay with. And Nash, I don't even know what the hell's wrong with him. He just kind of disappeared yesterday with an upper body injury.
Yeah.
So, but I
Let's
think
hope
most
that's nothing.
I hope it's nothing. And
Yeah.
but I think most of these guys will be back. And if you have a healthy Bruins lineup, if you look at like what those lines would be, it's a scary, scary playoff team.
Well, that's they were even talking about tonight on the broadcast. Like, when you look at even their power play, I mean, with the guys that they're not even playing right now, you got Bergeron and Pasternak's out there right now. But to add to the mix of Pasternak and Donato, right? You got Bergeron, you got Rick Nash, you got Charlie McAvoy. Like, all of a sudden, your power play is disgusting, and your lines up and down are nasty. And it's funny because someone was saying, I was talking to someone about this today, and they were saying they had heard, or they were looking at the players that were injured, and they were like, that would be a hell of a line. You got Bergeron at the center, right? Left wing is Nash, right wing is Backus, and then you got Chara and McAvoy as your defenseman. And so it's like, Jesus Christ, like you got a hell of a lineup injured. They're not even playing. So
Yeah.
it's, so I think when those guys come back, that'll be interesting. So we'll see. Hopefully most of them will be back before we start. So now the Donato, I just think Donato's hysterical because here's a kid who gets 3 points in his first game and then misses practice the next day because he's got to go to class. And it's like, what?
It's such a power move by him. Like, and you know what? Good for him for being a Harvard star, getting a NHL contract, and finishing school at Harvard. And you know, finishing college is hard enough. It took me 6 years to finish undergrad, so I can't imagine doing it in 4 years while playing a professional sport, still studying. And it's so we're in March. Finals are coming up in a few weeks, 8 weeks or so. He's going to be having finals in the midst of the NHL playoffs. So,
Right.
I
I
mean,
mean, yeah.
this is
I
something special.
really, I mean, you think about me, and it's not like he's going to like UMass Lowell. Like, no offense to UMass Lowell, but like he's going to Harvard. Like, it's a
Right.
little bit different. You know what I mean? So
And
it's
he's going to
just
finish Harvard. He's going to graduate.
right, right, and that's the thing. And I think that the stark comparison here is from the NHL to basketball, right? Where these guys are one and done. The majority of them are one and done guys. They go in, they play a year, they're out. Like the guys that are done, the guys that are in the tournament right now, they're done with school already. Like
Yep.
they're like, I'm going to the draft. I'm not doing any school. Fail me. Who cares? What difference does it make? I'm leaving anyways. So it's one of those things where it's like, the difference between the two sports is unbelievable. And I know that there are tons of guys in the NHL that, play juniors and aren't in college or spend a year or two in college and then leave. Like I realize that happens too, but certainly not to the frequency that it happens here and that happens in basketball. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that where a guy's, going to class in the middle of the season and misses practice because he's like, oh, I got class this morning, so I gotta go. It's just crazy, it's wild.
It's
So
funny.
yeah. So now expectation wise, what are you looking for expectation wise from them?
From the team in general, or
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've said it on the Loose Change podcast. This team has, when healthy, has what it takes to go to the Stanley Cup Finals. Um, I don't know if they have what it takes to beat Nashville. I think it's going to be Nashville in the finals, but I mean, they beat Tampa Bay, the first place team, without half their lineup.
It's
They,
true.
they're beating really good teams, and it's something that's really unheard of with the Boston Bruins team when they're injured, when they're going towards the playoffs. Everyone's like, oh, it's kind of scary because Tuukka Rask and he can't perform in the playoffs. But I think it's he's got a good group in front of him, so I do expect this team to go to the Stanley Cup playoffs if they are healthy. Um, they have that's the thing. That's the big if right there. If they're
Right.
healthy. But I think they can beat Toronto. I think they can beat Tampa Bay. And like I said, Nashville's the only one who really kind of scares me. But I expect this team to go to the Stanley Cup Finals. I don't care if it's 7-game series the whole way through. They have to go.
Yeah. No, and I'm with you on that. I mean, I think that that's the expectation we're going to set. I don't know if they're going to get there. They're young. I am nervous about Tuca. I feel like, and not that Tuca's overrated because he's not. And I know he's played pretty well in the playoffs, but he's had those moments, man, where he's just not he doesn't make the plays that he needs to make at the right times. And so to me, I question, like, is he worth all the money that you're paying him to be here, to be your goalie, to be the guy, right? Is he worth that? And I think that this year is going to tell a lot of that. And maybe not even this year, because maybe you say this year, okay, the guy's young, but next year for sure, if they can't get to the Stanley Cup Finals this year or next year, obviously barring like major injuries, that to me is a massive underachievement. And whoever it's on, I don't know who it's going to be on, but whoever it's on, I'd look at the goalie first and say, look, man, like we have to get there, right? And Thomas, when the last time they won, Thomas went on a ridiculous run, and obviously no one can expect that from any goalie.
Right.
But that's what won you the Stanley Cup, was the way Tim Thomas played. And if Tuca can't put the team on his back and do that, or at least play well enough to match the goalie on the other side, then why are you paying him like a top five goal in the NHL?
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I mean, I do get nervous with Rask in the playoffs, but I think this year is just so different. I think there was beef with him and Julian last year, and he looks more confident, whether that's, it's not his groin doesn't bother him anymore. He's not so fragile, quote unquote. But I mean, people need to also understand, and I know it's, years removed from this, that Tim Thomas up and left this Bruins team and was just kind of like, here, this is your team now, Rask. Thomas got his ring and he was like, I'm done. So I think,
I'll go
and
live in my bunker.
yep, exactly. And I still stand behind this, that if Tuukka Rask had one more year under Tim Thomas, he would not be the next Tim Thomas, but he'd be really, really close. So, I mean, he came in and he had to be a starter when he wasn't ready to be a starter. And I know, like I said, I know that's years past now, and he's grown into this newer elite goalie, I'll say. I don't know if that's gonna make anyone mad, but I think this year we've seen a different Tuca, and I think we've seen a more confident and a more athletic Tuca. He's good for, you know, crazy extended saves and kick saves, butterfly saves.
Right.
But I think we've seen more of that this year than we have in years past.
Well, the ironic thing is, I feel like it really turned around when Cassidy benched him. I feel like at the beginning of the year, it was almost like he wasn't playing well enough. His head wasn't in the game, and Cassidy was just like, "Just sit down, and we're playing Hudobin." and we'll go from there. And Hudobin was unbelievable. He was sensational in those games. And, and they just basically said, we're just going to keep going with it, and we'll just ride him for as long as it takes. And Tuca had to answer the bell and say, hey, look, he's playing well right now, and so of course you're going to play him. And I think it woke him up a little bit because, I wonder, you sign a contract like that and you get a little bit complacent, right? I mean, the guys they had in here with them, and like Chad Johnson and these other, and it's like, these guys aren't taking my job, right? And Hudobin comes in and plays his ass off, and it's like, maybe this guy could do the job, and certainly was doing the job. And so maybe Tuchel took a look in the mirror and said, I'm not doing enough, or I'm not giving enough, or whatever it was, it kind of pushed him to that next level. And again, that's another situation where you look at Cassidy and you say, there's no way that Claude does that. There's no way that Claude does that, because he's loyal to his players to a fault, where it's like his guys, he's going to let work through their issues. Whereas like the guys, the young guys or whatever, he's going to bench them and whatever. But he wouldn't, to me, I feel like he would have never done that.
No, you're absolutely right. I have zero faith that he would have done that. And I think, like you said, Rask was benched and he watched Hudobin play phenomenally. And once Rask got back in net, he was like a totally different player. And sometimes that's all you need. You just need that kick in the ass where it's like, you need to get your stuff together. Let's go. Like, you are our number one goalie. And he absolutely got comfortable with the contract he made. And like Chad Johnson, Gustafsson, Jonas Gustafsson.
Right. Yeah.
One. Last year there was the year before, it was, Malcolm Subban was here, Zane McIntyre was here. And we just couldn't, Rask and Hudobin were hurt. So it was just like, there was no set goalie. Like, he was the goalie. And they're not going to put Subban in over Rask for the hell of it. Like, Claude wouldn't do that. So, when you get comfortable being like the starting goalie because you don't really have a choice, then you have Hudobin who comes in here and can give you a run for your money. You start thinking like, okay, like, this is serious. And you get a better team in front of you, you get the better defense in front of you. You get confident players, you get a confident goalie. So I think it's been a whirlwind of things. And it started, you nailed it. You started with the benching.
Right. So hopefully this year will go well, but the future looks very bright, like really bright.
It sure does.
So my question to you is, now obviously throw out injuries, throw out, anything happening, out of the young guys they have, who do you think is going to be the best player overall? And I'll take Pasta out of that situation because Pasta's been around long enough. I know he's still young, but he's been around long enough that I'll take him out of that situation. So we're talking about like McAvoy and Donato and even Carlo and, and even you want to throw Heinen in there, like any of the young guys that are starting out, recently, Grzelcyk or whatever. I mean, Grzelcyk's probably not going to be the guy, but but the point is, you understand what I'm saying. So any of these young guys. So
I think it's going to be McAvoy or Heinen, and that's not taking a knock at Donato. I think he's going to be fantastic, but I think the way McAvoy plays, it's, people say we need that big defender, and he's not afraid to get to the puck. He's not afraid to help with the assist. He scores some goals every now and then, and he makes such a difference on the ice. He's such a presence, and people know he's on the ice, and we haven't had that kind of defender in a long time, and he's made Chara look 20 years younger. So I think McAvoy is going to be a complete stud, and I think Heinen, who is having a fantastic year, is completely underrated, and I think he's flying under the radar, and I think he's going to be one of those other players where it's just kind of like, oh, he's really good, and just completely blow away any expectations.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. I think you're right. I mean, I do like that pick because he's definitely under the radar. Like DeBrusk has gotten a lot of press. Obviously, Donato at this point has gotten a lot of press. But I think Heinen's kind of that. He's very skilled. He's really skilled. A lot better than people give him credit for. So what's ironic about the McAvoy thing is that the Bruins are trying to trade up to get Hanifin, who went to BC and is from Boston, and they obviously didn't do it, and they ended up drafting Zboril, DeBrusk, and Sench in that draft, and they ended up getting McAvoy later. So it's almost like they got their defenseman later, and they still ended up with three solid, I mean, we haven't seen much from the other two, but obviously, DeBrusque looks legit. So it's like they got three young prospects as well as their defensemen. And I don't, I'm not going to say that McAvoy's better than Hanifin, but he has the potential to be as good, if not better, than Hanifin is. So I think that, it was kind of almost a blessing in disguise that they didn't make the trade, because if you have Hanifin, you probably don't draft McAvoy because you already have Hanifin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that was the perfect pick. I think, Hanifin's really good, but I think there's a reason they didn't try to get him the way that they've tried to get these other players on the ice.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see. But I think that's it, man. I think that's it. The do you have a score update for me? Do you have the game on in
It,
the background?
I do. It's they just tied it. St. Louis
Ah,
just tied
Christ.
it. There's 10 minutes to go. So,
Of course. Okay.
but all we need is 1 point to clinch a playoff spot.
That's
So,
it. Get it overtime and then clinch it. And I mean, realistically at this point, I know Tampa, it was on a little bit of a roll and whatever, but you're 5 points down with two in the hand. So with two in hand. So if you win those two games and whatever two games, you win those two games, and then all you have to do is get two other points on them, and that's what with 9 games remaining, because we have 11. So with 9 games left, you're going to make up 1 point. So realistically, the Bruins have a good shot at doing that. I know they got a lot of injuries they're going to be playing through, and guys that don't get a lot of minutes typically are going to be playing a lot, but it is what it is. But I think gearing up, getting ready for the playoffs is more important. Those guys to get healthy for the playoffs, anyways. So I'm like, even if you end up at 2, so what? You're at 2. I don't think it really matters, because the team that's really going to challenge you the most in the East, obviously, is Tampa. So even if you're 2, you're still not going to play them until into the Eastern Conference Finals. So, we'll say 1 or 2 is fine with me. Obviously, I'd like to be 1, but 1 or 2 would be fine with me. So anyways, well, Lauren, thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
yeah, thank you so much.
Had
I
some
was
fun.
happy to be on.
And where can people find you?
Oh, people can find me on Twitter. My handle is a little obnoxious. It's 3 laws and then Lauren with 4 R's. So it's a little obnoxious. It's been my thing for the past like 15 years. You can find my written work on couchguysports.com, clnsmedia.com, and then find us on the Loose Change podcast weekly. So find me all over the place.
All right. Nice. Cool. Well, thank you for coming on. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon. And hopefully we'll be talking about a Bruins Stanley Cup. Maybe we'll have you back on.
Absolutely. I'm happy to come on whenever you need me.
All right. Have a good night. All right.
You too.
Thanks.